Welcome back to Oxford as Ole Miss has taken control of this game. They did it early. 35-0 is the score at the half. Welcome back to SEC Network College Football, presented by Allstate. So the Rebels rolling here through the first half against Presbyterian. Tom Hart alongside Matt Stinchcomb. One of the goals, establish a running game, find some guys who could separate themselves. Seems like that's happened.
Yeah, they got explosive plays out of the run game. And these are guys that they're wanting to be able to contribute as the season continues to unfold. Mark Dodson ripping off a couple of nice long touchdown runs.
Let's take a look at who's playing with style, brought to you by Belk.
It was early in this game where they were able to use special teams. Ole Miss gets the turnover off a block punt, gets excellent field position. They were incapable of capitalizing on that one, but then they generated yet another turnover, something that this defense has feasted on all season long. That set up a touchdown. Seen some big runs. Jordan Wilkins coming out from the shadows of his own end zone. And this time now with Mark Dodson out of a heavy personnel set. They had a tight end, two backs in the backfield with Bo Wallace. Not something you see Ole Miss use very often. And they're able to get two touchdowns out of that personnel grouping. Mark Dodson able to make the Blue Hose pay. They committed to the line of scrimmage, showing some of that big play capability that they've sought out of the run game.
So a fun, family-friendly day for the Rebels and their faithful here today at Vaught Hemingway Stadium as we get set to start the third quarter. Third FBS opponent of the season for Presbyterian. Big losses against Northern Illinois and North Carolina State earlier this season, but rare to be playing one so late in the year for the Blue Hose. This is Jeremiah Mackey, and he takes a knee. That gives us a moment to check in with Heather.
Yeah, Coach Nichols told me that his team was giving up too many big plays and had too many missed tackles, the little things that could really keep them in this game. But he said it's tough playing against this Ole Miss team who's stronger, bigger, and faster. He's just trying to build on a little bit momentum here in the second half, leading into their last conference game next weekend.
All right, thanks, Heather. It doesn't get much easier in the Big South Conference for this Presbyterian program. They're having a great year, the #2 rated conference in the country, only behind North Dakota State's league. And they're the two-time defending national champs, I believe.
And the favorite again this year to win it.
#1 in the country at the FCS level. When are they going to change that name again? Football Championship Subdivision. And now we've got another championship subdivision at the formerly Division I level.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, they've got enough issues at the NCAA to not worry about renaming divisions and levels, I think. But yeah, I think they just do it to keep us on our toes. Division I, Division I AA, Division II.
And they still call it the Division I National Championship, which it is. It's just one of,
right
now two.
One of two.
2nd and 11. Ole Miss on the first college football playoff rankings came in at #3.
Prior to the snap, false start, 68 offense, 5-yard penalty, still second down.
That's Dylan Salmon's center. And then dropped to #11. In the latest batch of rankings that came out Tuesday night. Interesting when you compare how the committees will work at the FBS level versus how the committee works at the FCS level. Their playoffs have grown over the years. They now have 24 teams and 11 automatic qualifiers. So if you win your conference, you are into the FCS playoff. This is McMahon with the run, and he runs into a brick wall or two. Christian Russell with the tackle. So they've got 11 automatic qualifiers to make up the field of 24, 13 selected at large by the Division I Football Championship Committee, which is made up of 12 members, not the original 13 like at the FBS level, and all 12 are athletic directors. They see the top 8 and then receive a first-round bye, and they go by geography for the most part to try and reduce travel costs early on. Wow, dangerous pass, and there's a flag down. Golsey may have made contact with Jordan Hallam's early before the break.
And Tony Connor, who was dropping back, he's their nickel player. They call him the stinger in their defense.
Pass interference, defense number 21. Ball will be placed in the spot of the foul, automatic first down.
Saw Sinquez Golson in the first half. You see him breaking on that ball. He's playing through the receiver to the ball. You're saying he got there a little too early, and you saw Tony Connor, number 12, underneath that route. Both Rebels in position to make a play on that ball, and instead ends up being an interference. They only had one penalty in the whole first half. Now, early on, two flags that we've already seen. As sloppy as it was in the first half, relatively clean.
Incomplete. Do you like the? Do you think it makes sense to have a difference in committees, as the FCS has done it for so long, since the late 70s, to have only athletic directors there versus a totally different setup at the FBS level?
Yeah, definitely more diverse at the FBS level. And you know what? I'm not a big fan of the committee approach in general. I felt like the selection process that they used with the BCS would have worked just fine when you look at how the top 4 teams were ranked in the BCS era and how those rankings were arrived upon. But to me, if you are going to use a committee, it would make more sense to do it the way FCS does it.
Fidel Brown in on the stop. Archie Manning was originally on the 13-person committee. He is taking a leave of absence. He's got some neck surgery coming up soon. So this selection committee will rank top 25 and then place the top 4 in the semifinals, which will be seeded. Conference championships will be emphasized, strength of schedule and head-to-head results.
So conference championships, a lot of folks got to keep that in mind. If those are going to be emphasized, it's impossible for that to factor in right now in their decision making.
So why even release the rankings at this point?
So give us something to talk about, so we can have a Tuesday night show.
We got plenty to talk about. We're talking about double-decker buses. AJ Feely, we got a lot going on. Marcus Rouse with the carry. Gets knocked down.
I think a lot
but in
of
reality, it's much ado about nothing at this point.
Listen to any coach on a press conference on Monday or Tuesday, and they will hammer that home as best they possibly can. Whenever they're asked about, you know, how do you feel about how the rankings shook out, they're going to say, we don't even care. What does it matter? I think Nick Saban has been the most adamant about it, saying, well, what do I care what the rankings are? The only thing that matters are the final rankings. And up until then, it really just doesn't matter. Same, it's almost like mid-season, preseason rankings. They're almost just as meaningless.
Eugene Brasley stands at his 29, new punt returner for Ole Miss, taking Markel Pack's spot. No chance for a return after that one hit the turf. Good field position after a 39-yard punt from Stephen Doors. Ole Miss on offense after this.
Then you got to get past just looking at, oh, yeah, you won all your games. It's how good of a football team are you?
Devontae Kincaid in at quarterback, tosses to Vince Sanders. He's got a gain of 12 on first down, as Bo Wallace will watch the rest of this game with the headset on. Kincaid, freshman out of Dallas Skyline High School, back on the field. Got a couple packages that they use for him, but it's tough to get a second-string quarterback in when you're running through the gauntlet of the SEC. Wallace will finish his day 11 of 15 for 140 yards. Nice run. Yeah, so you got Florida State on the outside. They're undefeated. Yep. You don't care that they're the defending national champs. Next year has nothing to do with it. Last year has nothing to do with this year.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, and I'm guilty of saying it too, but you can't defend the national champions. It's New Year. I mean, we won it last year, and it was very impressive. Jameis Winston's an excellent football player, but given the games that they've played and the way that they've played them, and it's not their fault the ACC is down very much this year, but they're getting a lot of credit. I think there's better football teams out there right now. Todd Adamson at 6.
Sorry, Kincaid's got a rocket arm and a little too much juice on that one to Adebayo. 3rd and 4 coming up. Even your picks. I mean, that's going to change. That can change today, and it will certainly change after conference championship Saturday.
Well, it goes back to your point earlier, which is, what does it matter? I mean, even the committee's picks right now, it kind of gives you an idea of their thinking more than anything else, so you can try to anticipate what the later picks will be.
I think perhaps we can get a feel for what they think of certain conferences and the strength of certain conferences.
No question. I mean, you could see this past week where you've got a Kansas State jumping over an idle Michigan State, so we know what you think of the Big Ten. And then you see a TCU who's incapable of jumping over an idle Alabama. And yet they've got at least one better marquee win, quote unquote, over a ranked Oklahoma team. You know, as good as Alabama is via the eyeball test, given what they've played so far this year, you can justify having TCU having jumped over them they didn't play last week.
Physical run for Jordan Wilkins to pick up a first down.
It's just clear, to your point, that they've got ideas and some notions. You know, Alabama played no one. TCU beat West Virginia at home, and yet they stayed behind the Crimson Tide, just outside of the top 5. Kansas State was number 9 going into last week's games. They were able to win decisively over Oklahoma State, and they're able to leap over Michigan State.
Out of the backfield, it's Markel Pack. You know, you mentioned the eye test. Guess what? Alabama's got a loss. They're the 5th ranked team in the country according to the experts. But on the eye test, it might be number 1. Matt Schick of ESPNU had a great tweet this week. He had his rankings, and then he had the eye test. And in the eye test, Alabama had every slot from number 1 to number 5. But we've got to judge teams based on what they do on the field, not on how talented they are at specific positions, how great their recruiting has been, or what they might do on a neutral site in a paper game. We don't play them on paper.
Yeah, you don't. But you do watch the games and the way they're playing now, and you look at the teams that they've lost to or to whom they've lost earlier in the season, and whether or not those teams were healthy and how they were playing. That's the whole quote-unquote beauty of this committee process. So you can actually evaluate where teams were and where they are now.
Here's Derek Jones. Only has 1 catch and a leaping grab in the end zone. Touchdown, Derek Jones in Ole Miss. He went on the top of Shaquille Byers.
Well, Coach Freeze talked about working with the receivers. Derek Jones has bounced around. He's a defensive back as well, and he's a guy that they need him to step up at the receiver spot. You see the head coach congratulating his backup quarterback, Kincaid, able to throw a strike to Derek Jones. Derek Jones was one of those guys that got some personal attention from his head coach this week in practice.
The extra point is added on. It's a 42-0 lead for Ole Miss. So in the second half, second stringers surging into action as Devontae Kincaid hooks up with Derek Jones to add to the Ole Miss advantage. Showing what he can do. It's a 42-0 lead for Ole Miss. He's the subject of our Good Hands play, brought to you by Allstate.
Derek Jones, only in his second play of the game, he get inserted into the offense. They throw him a shot. Devontae Kincaid gives him a chance. Derek Jones makes a play on the football. Not necessarily bad coverage right there. But Derek Jones able to extend over Shaquille Byers and make the play.
Second grab of the day for Jones, both coming on that drive. Doesn't hurt when you have a guy like Dante Moncrief on the sideline, does it? Giving you some pointers.
Yeah, talk about some success. He was the Laquan Treadwell before Laquan Treadwell was here.
Mackey, grab it. Second time he's forgotten the football on a kick return. He's able to squeeze 2 yards out of the return, out to the 16. Well, there's a bunch of guys banged up coming into the game, maybe more. Let's check in with Heather.
For linebacker Keith Lewis, he came off the field. He was wobbly. They took him through the concussion protocol, took his helmet away, gave him a thumbs down, so he'll be out of the game going forward.
All right, Heather, thank you. Every team is banged up at this point of the season, but that is the 3rd guy on my list with concussion symptoms for Ole Miss. Trey Elston will not see action today due to his concussion, and Itavius Mathers as well. Mathers had 7 carries against Auburn for 43 yards. This is DeMarcus Rouse.
Meeting with Dave Womack yesterday, we mentioned that areas where they're especially thin at this point in the season. Safety is one of them. We mentioned Trey Elston out with those concussion symptoms. But you also take a look at a linebacking core where Denzel Kimdichie out with a busted ankle. Keith Lewis was a guy that was going to be playing more because of his injury. And all of a sudden, that linebacking core getting a little bit leaner. If, in fact, that concussion keeps him out of play going forward. They got a bye week coming up. They're going to need to make sure that guys either step up or get healthy quick at those 2 spots.
G. Brown is back from injury at one safety. C.J. Hampton is at the other right now. And no whistle, that play dead. And DeMarcus Gates
prior to the snap, false start, 77 offense, 5-yard penalty, still second down.
DeMarcus Gates now getting some reps at linebacker. Dave Womack said, you know, I have to be careful when I'm talking to my guys on a week like this. I don't promise them reps. I don't promise them snaps. What I reinforce to them is the same message I give the reserves every week. You are one play away from entering the game. There's Denzel Kimdichie, lost for the year with a broken ankle. Ole Miss has invested some money in those little scooters, haven't they?
Yeah,
training staff got multiple scooters on the sideline. That's not what they want. Sandwich hit on Markel Hines, freshman from Bradenton, Florida, out of Manatee High School. J. Moore came in to crunch him.
Channing Ward getting some time in there as well, defensive end. We've seen some guys roll in the front. They've been able to establish some depth there. They roll a lot of guys, not only in the inside positions, but on the end positions. Number 11, Channing Ward, had a big play versus Alabama, forcing a fumble and a punt. You see some of these guys getting some more reps late in the season. I guess that's the one advantage to playing a game out of conference and at the FCS level, is getting some of that experience for some of the guys who hadn't seen plays.
There's a big hit in the backfield. And causing to go a little bit deeper on the roster. Herbert Moore makes his presence felt.
Defense doing a good job of moving the line of scrimmage, playing in the backfield. Channing Ward again finding his way into the blue holes, almost taking the exchange now. We've seen several tackles for loss in this game.
That was a great individual play. Where do we stand on the land shark code? I mean, you're up 42-0. Can you still throw a land shark up?
I think it depends on how many reps you got this year. You're out there on the grass, might as well get the land shark in while it counts.
Fair catch asked for and taken by Brasley. We may see him in at running back soon for Ole Miss. So the land sharks able to turn back the blue hose. The shutout is intact. Herbert Moore says, I'm in on a play. I'm throwing up the fin, buddy. I don't care, it's 42-0. This is leading receiver Laquan Treadwell in street clothes. He's lost for the season, 48 catches and 5 touchdowns on the year, but he's getting plenty of support from Ole Miss faithful. This is how it went down. It would have been likely the game-winning touchdown against Auburn, at least the go-ahead score, but Treadwell injured on that tackle, lost the football, second turnover in the red zone for Ole Miss last Saturday night. And for more on the support that he's getting from the Ole Miss fans and fans throughout the country, let's check in once again with Heather Nitz.
Yeah, since Saturday's injury, the Sports Information Director's office has been flooded with tons of fan mail, fans showing their support for Laquan Treadwell. He is on the sideline today. He's in his boot. He's been talking to the players, giving them support. He did say today that the doctors gave him 4 months to get back, but to me he said, I'm giving back in 3.
There you go.
He has an extremely positive attitude. He's been giving tons of support to his teammates.
All right, Heather, thanks. Yeah, why not? Why not shoot for the moon? And you know what struck me is we were in for meetings yesterday, and we went through those letters as Ryan Buchanan is in at quarterback now. He completes his first pass to Derek Jones. Another nice move for Jones. It'll be a breakout game for him. Those letters weren't just from the state of Mississippi. We've found them from all over the place. They're from Quan's home state of Illinois. They're from as far, I think we saw one from Washington State, California. So it's folks nationwide trying to show their support for Laquan. Hand off to Jordan Wilkins. And I would venture to guess that they aren't all Ole Miss fans.
Yeah, it's impressive to see that kind of outpouring. I'm sure people appreciate, you know, when you see a kid who's battling for yards, the type of player that Laquan Treadwell is, a team player, great blocker, great receiver, and a heck of a teammate to a team that's performed at such a high level. Not surprising that probably fans that don't even support Mississippi football would want to reach out and support him, especially you know, look at a guy that is very early on in his career. He's got a lot of football left to play at the collegiate level.
Trey Bledsoe with his first catch of the game on that delivery from Buchanan. Buchanan, freshman from Jackson, Mississippi. Back to the ground game. And to the 20 is Wilkins.
Jordan Wilkins to the 20-yard line.
So Ryan Buchanan getting his first series. Devontae Kincaid was in on the prior series and threw a touchdown pass. Buchanan is the 4th Rebel to take a snap today, if you include Jeremy Liggins. Change of direction for Wilkins.
22.
You look at these stats after the game, and they'll be impressive in a dominating performance by Ole Miss. Perhaps what will be the tell of the tape, though, will be their success on first down.
Yeah, that was something that obviously is a trigger for them offensively. We haven't seen tempo a lot in this game, but any team in the country is going to want to be 4 yards or more on that first down. It's a gateway for the rest of the possession. You'll set yourself up, and of course they have dominated on first down in this game. 14.3 yards. That's pretty sporty.
Here's Derek Jones again. And a flag down as he got dragged down at the 2. Mitchell Anderson able to catch up with him for the tackle. Seeing something from Derek Jones here today.
Illegal block in the back, 71 of the offense. 10-yard penalty for the spot of the foul. Repeat, second down.
Freshman from Memphis, Christian Morris.
Christian Morris was a guy that came in for Ole Miss. They thought they could give him some depth on the offensive line, and he's trying to get out there in front. That's one of those plays that we saw a lot that Laramie Tunsil would do in his left tackle position. As we mentioned, Tunsil's out with a strained bicep 2 games in a row now that he'll be down. With the bye week, that'll give him 3 weeks to recover. But Christian Morris, see the size. He certainly got that prototype from a stature standpoint at 6'6", 330.
Play clock is at 5. Buchanan trying to find his tight end, incomplete. One just kind of rolled off the hands.
You see the 2 distinct skill sets at the quarterback position. You know, Devontae Kincaid with the touchdown pass, but certainly more of a runner. Ryan Buchanan, Hugh Freeze was marveling at his release. Excellent release. He's got good arm strength, not great arm strength. Of course, Kincaid brings more of the run element, as we saw him prior to Buchanan entering into this contest.
Option look. This is the tight end who grabs it this time, Taz Zettergren, sophomore from Senatobia, Mississippi.
Great play that time by Rozier. We've seen him a couple of times. Defensive end for Presbyterian. He was a little bit banged up at the end of that one or not, but either way, he played the shovel pass perfectly.
Or down, and Andrew Fletcher on to attempt the field goal. First field goal attempt. Probably second field goal attempt of the day for Ole Miss with Papanastos. The first time, and that one's blocked. Presbyterian got a great break on the snap to get in and deflect the kick from Fletcher.
It looked like Steve Asandu coming around the edge. They didn't have very good. You got a kind of swinging gate at the edge at the tight end position. Nobody got a hand on Asandu, and he was able to get in the backfield and pop that ball out.
So the freshman from McDonough, Georgia, Steve Asandu, able to come crashing in and take care of it with his face mask.
Rushed for like 180 yards, which is impossible. They sure felt like that, too.
This is the end around for Jeremiah Mackey. I'll be watching that game, and I'll be tallying every time you got beat, every missed assignment, and all of your flags.
I don't doubt that. That sounds about right. I'll tell you what I remember. I remember eating a pregame meal that I thought was a ham sandwich. Turned out it was turkey, and the food poisoning was outstanding, to say the least. Talk about challenging to play on the road. We finished 5-6. That's a forgettable year.
But you'll always have that ham sandwich. 2nd and 5.
Most turkey. That's the problem.
Oh, the things you remember. Things you get stuck in that cranium of yours. Pressure coming, and down goes McMath. Levon Hooks, and the ball's loose and scooped up by Ole Miss. Another takeaway for the Land Shark defense.
And Hayes McMath goes down. Levon Hooks was in there, and Channing Ward. So now that the opportunities, guys taking advantage of it. We talked about it in the run game. Mark Dodson and Jordan Wilkins. We hadn't seen Jalen Walton all game at running back, and now Channing Ward. Levon Hooks has made a couple of plays, tackles for loss, a tip ball that led to an interception. Channing Ward getting into the backfield on a regular basis.
Well, Taylor Polk comes out of there with it. This was a common theme with the coaches yesterday. This is an opportunity game for a lot of these reserve players. Devontae Kincaid back in at quarterback and movement on the right side.
Dead ball, false start, 52 offense, 5 yards, still first down.
Davion Johnson getting some snaps. Those aren't the kind of opportunities you want to take advantage of in a game like this, but regardless, be out there under the lights. Chance to show this coaching staff what you can do. Markel Pack gets run out of bounds after the little toss from Kincaid.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about Coach Freeze and the job that he needed to do coming into this week. And they were coming off basically the tail end of what's been one of the more arduous roads of any of these SEC teams. Outside of Kentucky, nobody has to play 5 straight conference games. And Ole Miss had just finished it up in an inauspicious way, obviously, losing the last 2, LSU and Auburn, by 7 points or less.
Derek Jones again.
That's a hard way to go down, and they needed to bounce back. So we talked about the mentality, but the other piece of it is like what you're talking about, where you got to get some guys out there and use this as an opportunity to evaluate. We know what Presbyterian's getting out of this game. They're going to be able to pay for lights in their stadium. They get to play in a big venue. The guys get to do it late in the season. But what Ole Miss is getting is a chance to get healthy, transition at some positions like wide receiver. We see a Derek Jones, and get some of your backup quarterbacks some snaps.
Kincaid will take off with it. Not enough for the first down. And that'll be it through 3 quarters of play. Vegas didn't bother putting a number on this one, and for good reason. Ole Miss leading 42-0 through 3. Still 15 minutes left to play. Bo Wallace left to listen in on the headset and watch as Devontae Kincaid and Derek Jones hook up. The backups doing their business here in Oxford.